Welcome aboard, folks. I'm Steven Malkowich, your captain on this adventure called Ship of Fools. I'm a fool. Lucky for you, I'm not sailing solo. Join me and a boatload of people, all just trying to make sense of this crazy world. It's a fabulous mess, and you're invited. Carson Binda, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Steve, thanks so much for having me on today. It's great to come down to South Surrey and be here.
That's wonderful. Carson, I'd like to start. You are with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. Okay. You're a BC boy.
I am now, but I'm a fairly new transplant to the West Coast.
Tell us a little bit about Carson Binda's life here.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Regina, Saskatchewan. Great part of the country, the Big Emerald Square, if anyone's ever interested in...
I know Regina, man.
Hey, it's a good town. It gets a lot of flack, but there's a lot going on.
You had to have been a big football fan.
Hey, absolutely. It's Rider Nation out there.
That's right. And my hometown's Winnipeg.
Oh, I had no idea. Hey, two Prairie Boys on the pod today.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
yeah, I've been in BC a few years now, but will never be cheering for the Lions. I'm a Riders boy through and through.
Okay.
Yeah, so I left Saskatchewan when I was about 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My father switched careers and got into the international development game. So we moved when I was 4 or 5 to Yemen first. Yemen, yeah, right on the tip of the Arabian Peninsula. Really fascinating country. Unfortunately, it's been in the news for all the wrong reasons the past few years. After a stint in Yemen, we moved to Kosovo, spent a few years there, a few years in Nigeria, a few years in Malta, little island smack dab in the middle of the Mediterranean, and then I moved back to Canada for university. I went to UBC where I studied political science, and I stuck around after I graduated. Figured there's nowhere else that's better in the world than Vancouver, so been here ever since.
Okay, so you went to UBC. When did you finish your studies up?
I graduated in 2022, so about 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
That's right.
So when you graduated, what was your intention when you came out of school?
That's a really good question. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I'd been very involved in politics. I was a student at UBC. The young conservatives on campus had grabbed me and got me very involved in their club. That transitioned to me running for parliament in the 2021 federal elections. So I knew I had a passion for politics. I wanted to make a difference in my community. Helped out on a few political campaigns, kept my feet in the water, so to speak. And when I saw there was a job opening at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, I decided to throw my hat in the ring, and I've been there ever since.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Now, talk a little bit about that, because I'm not familiar with that organization, and I know it's been around for what, 20 years?
10 years.
30 years. Okay, 30 years. So tell us a little bit about the Federation.
Absolutely. So back in the 1990s, there was a series of sort of taxpayer advocacy, citizens advocacy groups across Canada. And in the early 1990s, several of those groups merged to form the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. So we are now Canada's oldest and largest citizens advocacy group dedicated towards lower taxes, less waste, and more accountable government. So that's our mandate, those three pillars. We've got offices around the country. We've got myself here in BC, a phenomenal team over in Alberta, in the Prairies, in Ontario, in Quebec, in Atlantic Canada, and of course our federal team holding down the fort in Ottawa, Mordor North, as we like to call it. So we've got teams across the country. We focus on provincial, municipal, and federal taxpayer issues. How is government overtaxing Canadians? Where's that money going? And where's the fundamental accountability behind those tax dollars and how they're being spent? So my mandate is very BC specific. I look at our regional districts, our municipalities, and the provincial government, how they're spending taxpayer dollars. Where's that money going? And then I also help out our federal team here and there when there's an interesting campaign that catches my eye.
So how are you funded?
Yeah, so we're funded through thousands of free will donations from folks who are really concerned about how their money's being spent by the politicians.
I'm very concerned.
Well, and let me connect you to our fundraising departments, and
I along with this will be. I don't know if you in there. There used to be a scale on the gas pumps that used to say what percentage of what you were paying per liter was going to various government, like municipal, provincial, federal, where it was all going. Yeah. I can't remember when that stopped.
Yeah,
and I don't know why it stopped.
Well,
I know why it stopped. And this is the perverseness of our tax system here, just on the consumption side. That I don't know if the public is aware. This drives me crazy. That as the price of goods goes up, the percentage or the amount that the government takes is more.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
right.
7% of $100 is if you have $150, 7% is more than the $100. So if everything goes up, what they're taking is more and more and more and more and more. And I don't see anything. Nothing's changed.
No, you're right. Everything seems to be costing more. Government is taking more and more money from Canadians every year through sales taxes, through income taxes, through payroll taxes, EI, CPP, so on and so forth. And what do we have to show for it? I mean, housing has never been more out of touch, out of reach for most normal Canadians. Our healthcare system is crumbling. I mean, a hospital half an hour away from where we're sitting right now in Delta was closing overnight because there's not the budget, not the staff to keep it opening. More Canadians than ever are relying on food banks because they can't afford to feed themselves and their families. When we have all of those core services deteriorating so quickly and so acutely for a lot of households, where is all this tax dollar? Where are all these tax dollars going?
So what do you guys, you talk about that. Okay, so what's like, and we were talking before we started rolling here about the issue that I had and what brought me into this space, and I just I gave up.
Yeah,
I went. I don't know if anybody cares, and the solution, because there's waste everywhere, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's as simple as building bike lanes.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't understand how you can ride I don't know what an electric bike is, an electric motorcycle, but they're behind me at one time, and then they're beside me, and then when it doesn't fit their path, they go on the sidewalk, and if I hit them, that's my fault. But do we really need bike lanes everywhere? I just look at it and go, out here in Surrey, we just went through. We're getting rid of the RCMP, but we're not. The provincial government signs a deal with the RCMP without the mayor's knowledge to keep them here for another 5 years, and who's accountable here? Like I don't know what. And the mayor of Surrey has a press conference that admits that she didn't know.
Yeah,
that's pathetic.
Oh, absolutely. This whole Surrey police transition from the RCMP to the Surrey Police Service has been a boondoggle for taxpayers since day one. I mean, this has cost an eye-watering amount of money. It's years behind schedule and millions of dollars over budget. And I think taxpayers need to ask themselves, is that the best use of our money? Are these cost overruns? Is this years-long process really worth it? And why did the province not step in sooner
and stop it?
Or make sure, or just make sure it,
that's right.
Just
Either or.
Choose a lane and make sure it happens. But all this time wasted going back and forth, all this taxpayer money that was wasted going back and forth is a huge problem. Now, when you asked who's responsible, well, at the end of the day, municipalities are a creation of the provincial government. Constitutionally in Canada, we've got two levels of government, the province and the feds, and municipalities are a creation of the province. Here in BC, they're mostly regulated by the Municipalities Act, with some cities like Vancouver on their own charters. But when municipalities are wasting money, at the end of the day, it's on the province to step up and sort it out. And look, in BC, our municipalities used to have a mechanism for that to happen. There was an independent auditor general for local governments whose job it was to investigate big spending issues, just like the Surrey police transition. The NDP, when they came to power, they eliminated that office altogether. I reached out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and said, hey guys, what's up? Why did you axe this office that seemed to have a lot of benefit for the taxpayers of British Columbia? They told me, and I'm not joking here, that they eliminated this office because the municipalities didn't like having the extra oversight. It's like retiring the farm dog because the fox doesn't like him guarding the hen house anymore.
That's a good analogy.
Thank you. I mean, but the very fact that the municipalities didn't want this extra layer of oversight, didn't want this extra layer of accountability, to me, that's a giant red flag that they desperately needed this independent auditor general for local governments. So at the end of the day, it falls on the province. Mm-hmm. And this current provincial government has been failing taxpayers dismally when it comes to giving us that accountability, and really providing us the responsible government that we deserve.
Well, I'll say this, in making the decision during the last provincial election run, I had, you're a young guy, and it's a good thing that, and I don't know if you have political aspirations, but it's good to be involved.
Absolutely.
And it's good to give a shit.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if anybody does give a shit, because there's so much bad shit out there. We're fortunate. I'm fortunate. I'm 60 years old. I'm not at the end of the rainbow. Like I got a lot left in me here. But I do give a shit.
Absolutely.
I don't know what's the mechanism? I guess what I'm trying to ask here, Carson, is we could talk about all these things and we can be critical as hell of them, but what's the mechanism or the means by getting something done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Change. And we don't, and this last provincial election, now I know why there was never really a Conservative Party in BC, because they can't play in the same sandbox. They just can't. You're a prairie boy. I'm a prairie boy. Where I grew up, it was, you could run, this is not disparaging. You could run like a monkey in a blue suit. It's coming out conservative. Okay. That's what we are. And conservatives conserve. They conserve. They're not right-wing nuts like they're portrayed. And I'll say this, and it serves whatever media's purpose to portray them as right. Conservatives conserve. I used to call myself a progressive conservative, but now I got rid of the progressive part of it. I'm just conservative. So what's the Federation, and I'm getting a roundabout way, you're getting to the point here. The Federation, from a tactical perspective, when you take in all this information and you I guess you try and communicate to the public as best you can, but really I'm not going to say your hands are tied. You can say whatever you want to do, but what recourse, we have an election, election cycle comes up, and we elected an NDP government again, based on the premise that in the last 8 years, has your life gotten any better? No. And they still got in.
Sure. But let me push back a little bit here. This election provincially, taxpayer issues were front and center, right? If you had told me that 3 or 4 years ago, everyone from the NDP to the official opposition would be campaigning on a promise to scrap the provincial carbon tax, I would have told you were crazy, right? I remember my very first press conference with the CTF. I was over in Victoria calling on then Premier John Horgan to provide us some carbon tax relief. And a senior journalist from one of the big mainstream media outlets laughed at me and said, Carson, you're wasting our time. You're wasting the Premier's time. There's not a politician in this province who wants to cut the consumer carbon tax. Fast forward to the last provincial election cycle, and I don't think there was a politician in the province running to keep the consumer carbon tax. And that's because of pressure from thousands of taxpayers across British Columbia. And you asked about our tactics. Well, knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. And I like to think of myself as an arms dealer in the knowledge business. Mm-hmm. What we do is we equip our taxpayer army, which is tens of thousands of Canadians strong, we equip them with the knowledge they need to then go to their elected officials, whether it's their MLA, their MP, and demand that they represent us properly. So the consumer carbon tax is a great example. Yeah. We spent years building lists, educating consumers, educating Canadians and taxpayers on the costs, the impacts of that carbon tax. The politicians were promising it was reducing emissions. Well, we used the government's own emissions data to show that the carbon tax wasn't reducing emissions like the politicians promised. Well, they swore up and down that it was revenue neutral and every dollar of the carbon tax was being used to offset other taxes. Well, we used their own numbers to prove that that wasn't the case. So by educating thousands of taxpayers across British Columbia, by mobilizing those taxpayers to stand up and make their voices heard, we made sure that there wasn't a politician in the province who thought they could run and win on a carbon tax. And as a result, carbon tax was cut this year. It's saving British Columbians about $3 billion. Yeah. That's a whole lot of money that isn't going to Victoria, that's staying in your pocketbook, in your bank account to pay for priorities for your family. And that's how it should be. Taxpayers need to be educated, they need to be mobilized, and they need to know that at the end of the day, they're the politician's boss. And if the politicians expect your vote in the next election cycle, well, they need to make your life more affordable by keeping more of your money in your pockets. And I think we were successful with that with the carbon tax here in BC.
So you as an organization are you're politically neutral.
Yeah, we're absolutely nonpartisan. We don't endorse anyone. It's sort of a funny case where no matter who the government of the day tends to be, they generally don't love us. And whoever the opposition is, they tend to have a whole lot of time for us. It is our job to hold the government's feet to the fire. And that's not a good way to be terribly popular with any government.
Yeah, there's if there was ever a time, though, and I municipal taxes.
Yep.
Okay, like municipal taxes have, in essence, doubled, tripled in some cases. We have an increase in the federal capital gains tax that went through, right? We have even the recycling thing is a scam. Like that I don't. How much? Who's making them on the recycling end? I get sure if I go and I buy a dozen bottles of water, I'm getting charged 5 cents a piece. I'm like, where's that money going?
That's a great.
Where is that? I know it's somewhat trivial when you start talking about a carbon tax, but that's another one that I go, okay, I take everything back to the recycle. I'm the only one in the family that seems to do it. Yeah, because that upsets me. And so I know all those aren't returned. So where's that money? The money going? Like, where's it? Is there ever been an accounting of the recycling system here in this is usually the province of British Columbia?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and as far as I know, the answer is no. I mean, I'm not aware of any full accounting of that recycling process. And you're right, like the bottle return tax. That's one example of something that's frustrating, I think, for a lot of British Columbians. But it's more than that. It's this baggage fee, right? Yeah. Like you're charged a tax now if you want a bag for your takeout order. Like it's so much of it is just so ridiculous. Yeah. And I think taxpayers are right to ask, hey, what's going on here? We're being charged this extra money for a bag for my takeout when I get a bottle of water at the grocery store, whatever it is. And is it having the impacts the politicians promised? Is it reducing usage? Is it making us all magically better off? I think more often than not, the answer is no. It's not achieving. They're not achieving their core functions. All that's happening is normal British Columbians, normal Canadians have less money in their pockets because of these hidden taxes and fees that government charges. And when we're dealing with an unaffordability crisis at the extent that we are in British Columbia right now,
we have net migration now.
Absolutely.
People leaving the province.
Right. And a big reason why is because it's so unaffordable to live in this province. The one thing government can do today to help fight that unaffordability crisis is leave more money in your pockets by cutting those kinds of taxes and fees that make it so expensive to live here in BC.
Mm-hmm. And so I read you had a piece published in the National Post just recently, and all I could think of when I was reading it was one of my pet peeves is the tunnel.
Yeah,
that tunnel, because I've been caught mid-span in rush hour traffic. Like, and some day it's just brutal. It's brutal, and that's been discussed. A bridge for 25 years, 20 years. We still have nothing. I know we initially had plans under the Liberal government, and then it was nixed by the end. And then I read that article and the amount of money that we're subsidizing the soccer for, and I think, how much was the bridge?
Sure.
And I think about the waste in the Surrey Police fight. How much was the bridge? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just asking. Common sense question here. Why has nothing's gotten better? I read the salaries. I go through the salaries of municipalities. Mm-hmm. You know, it makes me sick.
Well, I mean, the mayor of Richmond makes as much as the president of the United States. Like, someone make this make sense to me.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. And Steve, I actually think you've hit on something really important there. Because you're right. Every single dollar that goes towards these kinds of wasteful projects, whether it's the $624 million that's going towards the FIFA World Cup, whether it's the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that go towards bureaucrats' helicopter bills, which is a real thing in BC.
Yeah.
That's money that's not going towards priorities. That's money that's not going towards replacing the bridge or replacing the tunnel with the bridge. It's money that's not going towards keeping our hospitals open. Here in Surrey, there are school children who are educated in portables stacked on top of other portables, double-decker portables. Well, every dollar that goes towards highly priced communications consultants to spin a narrative around the Surrey police transition, that's money that's not going towards getting those kids in real classrooms. It's money that's not going towards reducing your property tax bill so you've got more money to invest in whatever you want to spend it on. Mm-hmm. Government, when it spends money and when government wastes money especially, that has a cost. And that cost is that money's not going towards other things that matter more for taxpayers. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned my piece in the National Post, which dealt with the FIFA World Cup. Mm-hmm. I think this is one of the most egregious examples of waste we as British Columbians are confronting right now. We are spending $624 million taxpayer dollars to host 7 soccer games for the FIFA World Cup. When you actually break down the math, that's about $1 million per minute of playtime. I live near BC Place Stadium, the venue where these games are going to be held. It's not uncommon to see folks pitching a tent next to the stadium because they can't afford to keep a roof over their head. Yeah. Right? We've got people living in the streets because they can't afford to keep a roof over their head. We've got people lining up at food banks because they can't afford to feed themselves and their families. But instead of making life more affordable for those folks, we're spending $624 million to host 7 international soccer games. Now, you have to make money or you have to spend money to make money. I've heard those arguments. Yes. Even according to the government's own estimates, this is going to come at a massive net cost to taxpayers. There's a whole bunch of peer-reviewed academic literature out there that says hosting an entire FIFA World Cup doesn't put taxpayers in the green, let alone hosting about 6%, 7 games out of 104. So you're right. Like, these kinds of big spending decisions by government have consequences.
I'll tell you, we live across the street from a park here. And we'll talking about policing. We live across the street from a park and there's baseball diamonds there. And this is about 2 weeks ago. I'm working out in the gym. We have a gym attached to the garage. And, I see a guy behind the backstop in his underwear, like tweaking out.
Yep.
Okay. So I walk, okay, what's going on? Then I see 2 police cars and I can't see if it's RCMP or Surrey Police. I don't know. I don't know. I walk into the parking lot. It's full of cars and stuff. And the 2 police vehicles are running, but nobody's in them. And I confront this couple walking and go, where did the cops go? and they just point to the bush, and they had accosted the guy that was tweaking, and they were making him get dressed. Okay, so the guy, they guide him out, make him get dressed, and when they get to the parking lot, and I wait because I'm going to say something to these cops here that this is just, and they let him go. They let him go, and I go, like, what the fuck? What? And they said, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
What are we going to do? I said that's highly inappropriate. So, now there's a bunch of things there. Okay?
Totally.
This guy's homeless,
Mm-hmm.
obviously got mental issues, high on drugs. It's 7:00 on a Tuesday evening, and there's a baseball game going on, and there's so much. And what's my recourse? So I talked to them for about 5 minutes, and then told them, don't go down the street a couple of blocks because I think there's something going on at that house, and that situation was looked after. But we have so many other priorities, so many other things to be spending our money on. It gives me hope, and this isn't blowing sunshine up your. I'm going to tell you that a young guy, young person, is involved. Okay, and I'm I graduated with a political science degree too.
Yep.
Okay, and I just like politics. It was interesting, and everything is political. But do young people care? Like do they give a shit?
Yeah. So let me start by saying, that tragic story that you just relayed, I think you'd be hard pressed to find right now a British Columbian who didn't have a similar story to that. And that just speaks to the scale of the problem that we're facing in British Columbia right now. The stories like that used to be one-offs. They used to be rare. Now they're common. Everyone has an experience like that. And when we relate to the young people, of course young people care about those kinds of things, right? It's young people right now who are being pressed out of the housing market. It's young people who are part of that giant exodus from British Columbia that the data tells us is going on right now.
Going to Alberta.
Going to Alberta, right? Where taxes are lower, pay is better, and homes are cheaper, right? So I think unless something changes dramatically and quickly, we're going to continue to see that outflow of young people, that brain drain from British Columbia to other provinces, unless we're able to start fixing those pressure points that are pushing young folks away, unless we're able to reduce the tax burden so we can actually enjoy living in British Columbia, unless we're able to build more affordable homes so young people can have a hope and heck of home ownership, which they don't right now. Unless we're able to make our streets safer for young families to stay in our communities and not have experiences like the one you had at your community center.
And these were all issues that were talked about during the provincial campaign. They were.
Absolutely, they were.
And, me being conservative, I belong to both conservative parties, federally and provincially. Me being a card-carrying member, we were able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It was, and then it's like, it seems like time stopped, like nothing's happened. Nothing has happened. Is that my imagination, Carson? Like from a provincial level, like nothing. The last major announcement was just about the First Nations getting, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's to me is one of the largest. And the premier immediately should have came out that we're appealing this, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't. And that so what's the next one going to be?
Yeah.
What's the next one going to be?
That's a great question. And another announcement we had out of the province, I believe it was Thursday afternoon, we just got a look at the public accounts. That's a big telling of how much money government spent, where it's going, all those kinds of nitty-gritty details. Now, government here in BC tried to paint this as a good news story. Their big headline was, "We reduced the deficit by $500 million. Look at us go." Yeah, until you actually crack the books, go through it and say, okay, well, they reduced the deficit by about 500 million from where they projected it, but they grew the total provincial debt by 10 billion more than they projected, more than they budgeted, right? That's like, okay, so your credit card bill's a little bit lower than you were expecting, but you took out a personal line of credit that you blew on new flat screen TVs.
Yeah.
That's the situation that our provincial finances are in. And that should be deeply worrying to the British Columbians listening to this right now. I mean, right now, the interest on our provincial debt this year alone is costing British Columbians about $5.2 billion. To put that in context, it's insane. That's money that's leaving British Columbia. It's going to the bond fund managers from our public accounts. It's money that's not going towards cutting taxes. It's money that's not going towards investing in those
healthcare or anything,
healthcare,
education, whatever,
police, you name it. If it were a ministry, the Ministry of Debt Repayment, it would have the fourth biggest budget in the province. Like, this is a huge chunk of our provincial finances going right out the door. And so I think we need to start solving those issues if our provincial finances are going to have any hope of recovering, building the type of economy that young people want to stay and contribute to. So yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of bad news from this provincial government since the last election.
But it appears to me that there's, I didn't realize this either, that I think the Peace Arch Hospital now has a safe injection site. I didn't know that, and I live like just blocks away from the rank and file, the population, aside from putting pressure on. I guess that's the only way. That's the way that a democracy is supposed to work. But what we seem to have is a dictatorship for 4 years until the next election. And I'm, and granted, we live in difficult times right now with our neighbors to the south.
But find me a time that isn't difficult.
You're right.
We had the pandemic. We had the situation with this. Like,
you're right. And it's got to start. It has to start somewhere. And we just, the absurdity of, like, I've actually read that announcement, and I'm going, no. I didn't even know that trial was taking place. It was 512 days, that trial.
Yeah.
Just to humor me for a second here. So both sides of that argument were being funded by basically taxpayer dollars, right? Am I wrong?
As far as I know, yeah.
So First Nations, that's taxpayer money, right? And the fighting the government, okay, that's taxpayer money. So on both sides here, we're paying to litigate something on both sides.
Yeah.
Am I wrong in saying?
So I don't know. I don't know the dynamics of how the First Nation funded its legal challenge.
Well,
so
it would have to. Sure. Okay, but that just it was of interest to me. I'm going, that doesn't make any sense.
That
makes no sense.
Well, and if that's an issue, I mean, there's an entire federal government grant giving program that funds advocates to sue the federal government. Yeah. So, like, absolutely, it is a dynamic where in certain court cases, the taxpayers are paying for the lawyers on both sides, which is ridiculous. If in this case, if Ottawa's crunched looking for savings, which we know they are, because again, debt's massive, taxes are massive, we can't afford it. Hey, maybe stop paying for people to sue you. Yeah. There's so many common sense areas where government needs to be looking for savings. And it seems like they're not super interested in doing that hard work of rolling up their sleeves and finding those real savings for taxpayers.
So when you hammer the provincial politicians, feel free to take a break here and wipe your brow. Or it's
warm in the lights.
Warm. That's all right. Give yourself a wipe. There we go. You're good.
Perfect.
You're good. So what is the I forgot what was I talking about?
When I talk to the province.
Yeah, when you talk to the province, what are the real pressure points And I mean, there's your organization, but what are the real pressure points where you can, like, and I'll say this, like, at least with that story that I told about the guy in his underwear behind the backstop, the police officers told me, just keep on calling.
Yeah.
Just keep on calling. Keep on, just bug the shit out of us, and we will get. That's how you get it. So you have to be tenacious.
Yeah.
You have to advocate. And I know that. And so we did on our street. That's what we did. And then got rid of it. And so in essence, what on the provincial level, there's only one of you. Like, how big of an office does the Federation have here in BC?
Oh, I'm the only.
You're the only guy.
I'm the only person in the comms team. So it's a small, very small team.
You.
Here. Yeah,
it's you. So what would you suggest? Obviously, there's funding. You take donations, that kind of thing. But the average Joe that would be listening to this, and they're pissed. They want to do something. What are the pressure points?
Well, so ideally, Premier David Eby would never hear from me. David Eby would hear from tens of thousands of taxpayers. And that's something that I think my organization does really effectively. We build email lists. We call them action updates. We send action updates to our supporters, emails. And we ask taxpayers to reach out to the politicians and tell them exactly how they feel about these issues. And we don't write form letters. We don't do any of that nonsense. We ask people to use their own words to briefly tell the politicians how they feel about these issues. Because it's one thing hearing it from me on TV or in the editorial pages of the local paper. It's another thing when the politician who's worried about re-election, who's worried about what they're going to hear at the barbecue circuit this summer. It's one thing when they're getting tens of thousands of emails from across the province or hundreds of emails from their constituents. So ideally, I would be doing not a whole lot of the talking, and we leave it to the taxpayers to reach out to their elected officials, to use the knowledge that we arm them with to push these issues.
Do you now? I'm the younger generation. I say younger generation. Our youngest is in our blended family is 28, I think. And what do you see at your age level with in the circles that you and I know there's a certain there's when you graduate from university with a political science degree, you're around certain people. I know that. I went through that, and I was I didn't work in Ottawa because I was really, really smart. It's because my dad knew somebody.
Sure.
That was the way it worked. I admit it. But I happened to be there when they were negotiating the free trade deal.
That would have been exciting.
It was pretty neat. It was really neat. Caught a glimpse on me on national TV when Nunziata and Sheila Copps and another nutbard jumped over the table, and the one guy cut his head, and it was funny as hell. But I was there, and I was rah, and actually thought, and then I was told to shut my mouth actually by the because I was exempt. My level, I was an exempt staff member, summer student kind of thing on there for 4 months. And because I would ask questions that, no, we don't ask those kinds of questions here in this, well, why not? And then I get a phone call from my father, my dad, telling me, just shut up. Okay. And I said, well, that kind of defeats the purpose, Dad. No, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, I'll use that as a segue into, you're a young guy, okay? And you're the communications guy. And I'm not saying you're not to be taken seriously, but you must face that. You're going, okay, what the hell you're a young kid. Why should I listen to you? I'm just being blunt.
No, absolutely. And I think, look, ideally politicians would take me seriously when I reach out and say, hey, can you make life more affordable for folks who can't afford it by cutting this tax or by stopping wasting money on this program? And sometimes politicians tell me to F off. Have a nice day. Don't let the door hit me on the day. Don't let the door hit me on the way out. Then the next step is for several thousand of my very close friends to send emails, which are probably worded a little bit more strongly than my suggestions were. And I think politicians learn pretty quick that the easy, nice way is usually easier and nicer for them than not being able to use their inbox for the next few days because it's so full of very angry and strongly worded emails. No, but look, my organization has a long track record of doing good work, of getting things right, spending the time to double check and make sure we're not firing from the hip. And I think that's allowed us to build and continue to build a really reliable, credible reputation and image.
So the politicians will listen to you.
Yeah.
They get the
Absolutely. And look, just by nature of partisan politics, I mean, if the government doesn't want to listen, well, chances are the folks across the aisle in the opposition do, or vice versa. So I can give you an example.
Okay.
I think before the cameras were rolling, we were talking about the need for an auditor general for local governments here in BC.
Yeah.
Well, I put out a petition. We got more than 10,000 signatures from British Columbians calling on the government to reinstate this Auditor General for local governments. I reached out to Premier David Zeeby's office a number of times, and I was told they weren't interested in receiving this petition and hearing from 10,000 plus taxpayers who wanted to bring back this Auditor General. So my next call was to the official opposition, and luckily John Rustad, the leader of the BC Conservatives, was more interested in hearing from those taxpayers, and he rose in the legislature and tabled that petition. So look, at the end of the day, politicians aren't doing themselves any favors if they want to ignore tens of thousands of their constituents. And so I think politicians realize, at least some of them do, that it actually behooves them to pay attention to important stakeholders like taxpayers.
So you not only, but you can go after the municipalities too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I like to joke that I'm in the business of bad government, and unfortunately here in BC, at all levels of government, business is booming for us. There's no shortage of wasteful spending and sky-high taxes for us to go after in the municipalities, regional districts, province, and the feds. And
we still, and what's puzzling, and I think about this, the portable thing on the schools. Mm-hmm. They're building it. They'll build a brand new school, and they're already putting the portables on.
Yeah.
So that equation that they use to whether or not they're going to build, and I'm going by memory because I used to run the newspaper here in Surrey a number of years ago, and I remember being told and reading that the way that they build schools, they base I can't remember the equation they used, but it was basically in the formula. By the time the school was finished, it was too small.
Right.
They'd have to have portables.
Yeah. Well, it's just poor planning from the government, right?
It's just horrid.
Yeah, there's no excuse for that, right? Like, our kids deserve better, fundamentally. And the issue isn't that there's not enough money to pay for them to have real classrooms. That's not the issue at all. The issue is that government wastes so much of that money on the politicians' pet projects, be it this police transition, be it outrageous salaries, so on and so forth. I could go on and on. But as a result, our kids are learning in double-decker portables. That is nothing but a dismal failure of policy from the province, from the municipality, and taxpayers are the ones suffering for it. And I think that gets to another real problem. All too often, it's the politicians and bureaucrats making these decisions, but it's the normal taxpayers who are suffering the consequences of these decisions. The kids in double-decker portables is a great example of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you've, when was the last time you've driven up to Kelowna or taken the
Gosh, it must have been last summer now. Yeah.
Well,
it's been a while.
It's really wonderful.
It's gorgeous.
It's wonderful sitting in the car, bumper to bumper. Like it is atrocious. It's atrocious. The traffic on number one highway, when you hit Hope, like just getting to Hope.
Oh yeah. It's
insane. Somebody hits the brakes at the Portman Bridge and there's an accident in Chilliwack.
Oh man, yeah.
And it's our last trip up there, and we try, because we're out here in South Surrey, White Rock, you try and get to number one, weave and duck and dive and avoid everything so they can get as close to the other side of Chilliwack as possible.
Yeah.
And then and coming home, it's the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And you go, you spent so I'm going, I say, okay, so why can't we have 4 lanes?
Mm-hmm.
Why, we're replacing the Patella Bridge with the same size bridge.
Which I need someone to explain this to me, right? Like, how and why was that the decision that government made? We're replacing a bridge with the same bridge. Okay. No, it's flummoxing. It's absolutely flummoxing because here in Canada, we're one of the highest tax jurisdictions in the world, right?
Yes.
You spend more on taxes. This is according to a study by the Fraser Institute. Most Canadian families spend more on taxes to all levels of government than they do on essentials, on food, on housing, on clothing, on savings combined. More on taxes. When we're being taxed at that level, taxed to death, we should at least have the services to show for it.
We don't.
Look, I've been on a wait list just to get a family doctor for 2.5 years now. I've spoke to folks in Kelowna in the interior, up north, who they show up to their local emergency room and there's a sign on the door saying, "We're closed unexpectedly. Drive to the next town 3 hours over if you're having a life-threatening medical emergency."
That's another issue here.
Right.
It's another issue, and I'll segue into there's a coffee shop that I go to here. Okay, I'm not going to name the name, but I want him to come on my podcast.
Yeah.
He's a doctor.
Right.
An internal specialist.
Yeah.
From another country. Very well educated.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a coffee shop.
Yeah. Well, that's because of gatekeepers preventing
monopoly that on the physicians. That's right. Exactly. And that's insane.
No, absolutely. And look, there was a time, I'm old enough to remember this, and I'm a fairly young buck here, but there was a time when Canadians used to take pride in our healthcare system, right? It was one of those shiny things on our national crown jewels. That's not the case anymore. I mean, the Commonwealth Institute, which is a think tank that looks at healthcare and other kinds of issues, they routinely rank Canada near the bottom of the developed world when it comes to real healthcare outcomes. Like, clearly, despite all the money we spend, we spend second highest in the world per capita on healthcare. Despite all that spending from taxpayers, the system is crumbling. It's absolutely in free fall. Canadians are dying on wait lists because they just can't access healthcare. Meanwhile, we've got highly trained internal medicine specialists running coffee shops because they can't get the licensing to get in the hospitals and start saving lives.
It's insane.
It's
insane.
A dismal policy failure from this provincial government that oversees our healthcare system. I mean, there's no other way to cut that.
I used to say, I've traveled because of a lot of the newspapers we own are in the United States.
Yep.
Okay, so I've traveled pretty to every state I've been in, and largely in the New England area, which is, and I'm a hockey fan, so I would end up, if I was on an extended business trip, I would go to a hockey game, and at times, and I could talk to anybody, I end up going, and I would, sometimes somebody tapped me on the back, go, "Hey, we got some tickets. Do you want to come with us and watch this hockey game?" And sometimes I'd end up sitting beside 2 Ivy League professors at a hockey game and talking about our political situation, our healthcare system. These academics wouldn't call it socialized medicine. They would, and I used to brag. I would brag and say, and this is a number of years ago, that Canada. The difference between Canada and the United States is the United States is a melting pot. We're a mosaic, and we're a proud mosaic. I can't say that anymore. That we've gone bonkers, berserk with accommodation, trying to, you can't upset anyone. We got to keep everyone happy. And does that mean that, that involve keeping everyone happy is living in a little 600 square foot cube with a feeder like a hamster? And that is that what happy is? because I had it is, and I couldn't, if I was 20, if I was 22, 23, 24, 25, no, I'd probably have a brick in a pillowcase and swinging it around. I'd be that upset.
Yeah.
Because it's completely unaffordable. Everything is and we've this last, in the elections aside, just the policy, the decisions that are being made, or the indecision, the stupidity. There just doesn't appear to be any common sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's just nothing, and I'm extremely frustrated because I at the same time, like I told you, we're the receivers of the media is subsidized. That's insane. It is. And I appreciate and fully understand why there's Canadian content and we'd be absorbed by the United States. I get that. I understand it, but we pretty much are now.
Sure. And at the same time, here's one of the things that gets me. I mean, the same times that the Trudeau government was announcing these big media subsidies and bailouts, they also made it almost impossible for online news articles to be shared, right? That's why, as a Canadian, if I pull out my phone right now, I can't go to CBC's Instagram page and read stories from our national public broadcaster, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where they made the newspaper, and I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on this, but they made it harder for small town papers to survive, a lot of which were surviving on those social media clicks just to pay staff, keep the doors open, and said, hey, you know what? Instead of being paid by advertisers, now we're going to give you a big taxpayer bailout instead. So it's one of those things where the free market used to be paying these salaries, used to be paying for operations, and now that's shifted to the taxpayer. And why?
I can tell you this. I'll tell you this. I'm going to say 100% of the newsroom employees that we lose, you know where they go to?
Where?
CBC.
Well,
they go to CBC, the CBC.
Well,
and I used to be a diehard watch the National, okay, because now I can't because it makes me sick. It's a horrible, and I just want the news.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I just like the news. I don't need journalism. I need journalism. And so it's insanity. I'm sure you got a couple of points on that.
I pulled up some stats on our national public broadcaster here, right? $38 million in pay raises funded by the taxpayer this year alone for CBC bigwigs. They have 250 directors, 450 managers, 780 producers that make $100,000 or more per year. Look, when the CBC receives $1 billion bailout from the taxpayer each and every year, of course small papers can't compete with that kind of money, with that kind of draw. So it's created this really horrific situation where small town papers are being squeezed out and journalists are going to the big public broadcaster, creating media deserts in small towns that used to rely on their paper. Because CBC, the National, sure isn't filling in the, here's what's going on in the Chilliwack Chili Bake-Off, right?
No, they're not. They're not.
So what we're seeing is small town papers dying in a lot of cases because this big taxpayer-funded behemoth just outcompetes them.
It's the same in radio too. Yeah. The radio stations shutting down. There was a bunch of them closed in Alberta, in southern Alberta recently. But we're, and I'm arguably, I can be called a Luddite at times.
Sure.
By my better half here. But I'm right on the cusp. I'm not a baby boomer. I'm right in the middle, 1965. And that's the cutoff, if you believe. I think Foote wrote a book years ago on the generations. But so I get it. But I myself am looking for, and I'm in the business, I'm looking for a credible news source. Yeah. I am. And what I've learned as we started the Ship of Fools podcast is that how much goes into, and that's what my wife handles, the social media part of it, and getting the message out there and telling clips and that there's so many different It used to be very simple.
Yeah.
Now now you're right. We're competing with a behemoth that's funded by us.
Yeah.
And
you're paying for your competitor to compete.
That's exactly it. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insanity. And we've been forced in the province of British Columbia to close down a couple of newspapers. It's just, you can't make any money. And even to the point where you say to the people that because we would buy the paper and keep the owners there. Mm-hmm. And we went through one, this is, I think 15 years ago, we bought a newspaper in a small town in BC here and offered just, we'll give you the paper back for $1. Yeah. And he said, no.
You can't even give it away.
Can't give it away.
Yeah.
And that's why when I had Professor Hoffman from SFU, I asked about where the students were getting their information from.
Yeah.
And interesting discussion. I think you brought that up too. So the message that we're talking about here, you have to rely on social media too to get your message out, right?
Oh, in a big part. And look, the media game has kind of changed. Like there was a time, and this was before I was with the organization, where CTF was holding a press conference. There'd be 20 different papers, 5 different TV stations, and 6 different radio stations that would all show up with their cameras and microphones and notebooks for the print guys. There just isn't that media landscape anymore. It's become so consolidated. It's become so... The small town papers have died out in a lot of cases. The radio stations have died out. And what that means is social media, new media, becomes a really important way now that we reach out to supporters in small towns and places where they don't have that same big media landscape that they used to have.
Do you guys hold events?
Oh, absolutely. So, I think as we're talking, one of my colleagues is driving around Western Canada right now in a big debt clock, which is a truck with a giant screen on the side that shows the debt going up in real time, stopping in small towns, having pub nights and barbecues to raise awareness about the debt. So absolutely, we hold.
Where would they go online?
Taxpayer.com.
Taxpayer.com.
It's easy to remember.
Easy to remember.
Absolutely.
And so what are like your next steps? I'll say like the federation. Where do you see the federation, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, going in the next couple of years?
Well, look, we've seen tremendous growth as an organization during the Trudeau years. There was a lot to go on that with that absolutely
mentality.
Yeah, like I said, we're in the business of bad government, and business was never better than under Mr. Trudeau. So I think we're going to continue to grow. I think a lot of the core issues that matter to Canadians that started under the Trudeau government, whether it's the $6 billion gun buyback, which is going nowhere seemingly, whether it's hidden industrial carbon taxes, whether it's bans on the purchases of new diesel and gas vehicles in favor of EVs, whether it's the hidden industrial carbon tax. A lot of the issues that we started fighting under the Trudeau government, these are still issues that are front and center, and for everything I've seen from Mark Carney, aren't going away anytime
they
soon.
Aren't. And I was sitting there going, okay, I'll give them a minute here.
Yep.
So I'm not going to read the book and go throw them away.
No, absolutely.
Okay, and it looks like it's going to be the same old.
In a lot of cases, right? So Mark Carney made this big splashy announcement that he was axing the federal carbon tax, which remember, we didn't pay here in BC. We had our own system. But in the same breath, he said he was going to strengthen an industrial carbon tax. Well, newsflash for Mr. Carney here, if you hike carbon taxes on fertilizer plants, well, that makes food more expensive. If you hike carbon taxes on our utilities, that makes heating your home more expensive. And if you slap new carbon taxes on refineries, well, that raises the price at the pub. That makes it more expensive to get anywhere. So I think a lot of these issues, the bad policies that were brought in by the Trudeau government, we're going to continue to see them sort of come to fruition under Mark Carney's leadership. And I think that's going to give us the opportunity to grow as to continue to grow as an organization.
Long term.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about a lot of issues here that are, we're on the same page. But long term, what is the solution in your mind? Like I don't want. I'm asking the question, and I'm thinking about it. My solution is, I just put a bar of soap in a pillowcase and go swinging around, and but I don't, because after an election, the first thing that an elected official is thinking about is getting reelected. I know that. Okay, but what I'll ask you, and this is an opinion. Okay, what is the solution to this plague that has just been exacerbated over the last, and it was bad before, but in the last 10 to 15 years, it's gotten completely out of control.
Yeah, so
completely out of control.
I think before we look at solutions, we need to really diagnose the problem. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, and feel free to disagree, but in my mind, the core problem is government has gotten too big, it's gotten too expensive, and it's gotten too bossy. So to put this in context, I mean, we have added 99,000 new federal bureaucrats in the past decade. Right? That's like the population of red deer, brand new in the federal bureaucracy. That comes with real costs. I mean, we know the costs of the federal bureaucracy has increased by 73% even after adjusting for inflation in that same time period. So I think the big problem is government's gotten too big, too bossy, and too expensive. Well, and there's easy solutions. You need to make government smaller, you need to make it cost less, and you need to make it more accountable. So that's going to take some political will. No one wants to be the leader to reduce the size of the bureaucracy dramatically. No one wants to be handing out pink slips all over Ottawa. But I think it's inevitable at this point. If we're going to get our public finances back to some kind of sanity, which means taxes can go down, which means you can keep more money in your pocket to invest in what you want to spend it on, whether that's a new house or a new machine for your business. We need to reduce the tax burden, we need to reduce the size of the bureaucracy, and we need to make sure the government is accountable and listens to the taxpayers who are paying the bills.
Well, I wish you nothing but the best. No, I do, Carson. And listen, we've talked a lot here. Give out the website, how if anybody that is watching or listening, if they wanted to get a hold of you at the Taxpayers Federation, and what that process. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, if anyone would like to find out more about the campaigns the CTF is working on, how to get involved, what they should be looking for, head over to taxpayer.com. Sign up for our mailing list, and that'll make sure that you are first in the know when our investigative journalism team breaks a brand new waste story, like Justin Trudeau's $6,000 a night hotel room in London, or when we've got a new campaign to email politicians to tell them to, for example, cut the carbon tax that makes life so unaffordable, or a petition like the one we delivered to BC's legislature calling on the province to bring back the Auditor General for local governments. Head over to taxpayer.com, sign up for our mailing list, and that's how you join our taxpayer army and make sure you're first in the know.
We'll be signing up.
Perfect.
I'll be signing up. Thank you, Carson.
Steven.
Appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me on.
You betcha.
You may be asking yourself, what's any of this got to do with me? Absolutely nothing. Until next time.